Time has finally arrived, the moment you've all been waiting for. You've been seeing clips of this deck on my channel for literally a week now, and we've perfected the final version for you here. This is going to be my deck guide for this spooky kill combo deck. If you haven't seen how this deck plays out already, then the basic game plan is that this is a combo deck. It's a pretty aggressive combo, and we are going to look to do several things. Either Levolution early in the game and just dominate, kill the game very early with a Levolution. This deck has every single way in its entire deck to do that, or get a big Harrowing or Hecarim that can end the game at that time. Because this deck populates Harrowing so quickly and so powerfully, this deck can actually play a Harrowing to close the game as early as turn 6 or turn 7 quite commonly. So why might you be interested in this deck or playing this deck? Well, it's got a pretty high win rate on ladder. At a 54% win rate, it's one of the higher win rates available for any deck on ladder. Not tier 1, but it's like high tier 2. Very, very competitive list. So another thing is that it's doing a great job at crushing some of the more common decks in the metagame right now, like Targon or Targon Demacia style decks are ones that have just really, really few ways of dealing with Harrowing right now. So if you really want to ass fist Targon Demacia or that style of invoke decks, this is actually a really great deck for doing that. It's not like the hardest auto win matchup ever, but it is very good if you play the deck solidly. And for me, a big thing is that it's actually just kind of a low-key big brain deck. Like, if you just want to play this deck and want to take wins, it will win you games even if you make some misplays, but it's got a really high skill ceiling. Even now, like after playing this deck all week and refining it, we've gone through so many different versions. It took me so long to build this deck. Even now, I'm still faced with, like, every couple of games, a unique decision point that I hadn't thought of before that I have to do some weird sequence on. But I can say with confidence that this is the best, most refined Lucian Hecarim deck out there right now, straight up. And that's not a flex. I spent literally like a week taking this concept and building the best possible Lucian Hecarim deck, right? There are a decent amount of people trying similar things on ladder, but in my opinion, and the stats do tend to agree with this, on average, like a lot of the versions are really, really poor. This, I know it looks, if you're just glancing at the deck, it might look like a similar concept, but it executes extremely differently and much, much, much better. To give a quick TLDR on the mulligans as well as the general playstyle, it's really important to be thinking of this deck flexibly and not falling into the trap of, you know, looking too much into mana points. We're usually mulliganing away a lot of these 1 mana cards because we are looking for Lucian and Grand Plaza. It's nice to have 1 Shark Chariot, but it's not as big of a deal. So we're mulliganing these aggressively. You can keep one of them in one of these 1 or 0 mana cards if you have a Blighted Caretaker for it to latch onto, and especially if you already have something like a Lucian. But it's a combo deck, and we have to be thinking very flexibly in terms of our combo. Plan out the turns in your head. The mulligan is a little tricky for this deck, and you will have to be thinking about whether you're attacking on odds or evens for some of the things. So plan out the first several turns in your head, and don't be afraid of keeping Harrowing in your opening hand. If it's a slower matchup, and especially if you know, maybe you already have like a Lucian or a Plaza or something, if it's a slow matchup, then you can absolutely keep 1 Harrowing in your opening hand, although we're pretty much never keeping Hecarim or Grizzled Ranger. But the way you want to be thinking about these mulligans is that it comes down to core pieces and, like, you know, supplemental tools, right? Lucian, Plaza are our 2 core pieces. We'll keep a Shark Chariot because it's pretty good, but for the most part, the rest of our hand in the mulligan is going to depend on which of those we have, right? You know, if we have a Grand Plaza or a Lucian, then I can keep a Haunted Relic, but if we don't already have one of those, then I can't. So just think about the mulligan in terms of that. And one final big tip is that do not play the second Grand Plaza. Do not play this card unless you have at least 1 Shark Chariot in your graveyard ready to come back. Trust me, it's going to look like a good Plaza, and then sometimes you'll lose a completely won game just by limiting yourself to 4 units on board. Shark Chariot is in this deck because it allows you to cheat the unit limit count that Grand Plaza, you know, forces you into, right? So again, do not play second Plaza unless you have a Shark Chariot. So that's my quick TLDR. If you guys want to try this deck out for yourselves, I've put a pinned comment that is going to have the deck code for this deck and the Mobalytics link. Go to the Mobalytics link because the deck code might actually be updated, right? I might have changed 1 or 2 cards. So, you know, looking at the Mobalytics link will allow you to see a potentially slightly more updated version. Okay, so now that we've gotten that all over with, I can talk about the deck build before we get into the gameplay. If you're just looking to net deck this and learn how to play it and learn how to play it well, learn some fundamentals, skip to the guide right now. It's going to be like 5 minutes ahead. I mean, you'll see it in the little like YouTube bar. You can just skip because I do want to talk about deck building. There's a lot of people that are interested in it, and I do want to help you guys learn to be better deck builders. And yeah, I'm still going to include it, but if you're not interested, just skip it. Just get to the gameplay. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so the deck build. This has actually been one of the most challenging deck builds that I have ever done. It's gone through so many different versions. Like, we started almost from scratch. It was actually over a week ago at this point, and if you've been watching on Twitch or, you know, from these highlights, you might have noticed that we've gone through a ton of different versions. We've changed so many different cards before arriving at this perfect version, and I have so much to talk about, why I made these changes, why I made these exact calls. I will still have to keep it a little bit short. So we've got, at its core, this is a Lucian Harrowing deck. That is how we're winning. This is the Harrowing deck. There's no better deck at using Harrowing right now. There's also like Fearsomes, which uses it, but it's more of like a side game plan. It doesn't really fit the strategy as a whole. For the most part, this deck is built in a way so that, like, even if your Lucian hasn't leveled up, if you Harrowing, the Lucian will level up and that will win you the game, right? So we're just kind of making sure that we have these insane game wins off of Harrowing and the Lucian blowout combo. We've attributed a lot of the flex slots in this list to early curve options. If you've been watching the versions, you'll notice we put in 3 Pesky Spectre, 3 Oblivious Islander, 2 Sapling Toss, and 3 Warden's Prey. We started like a very, very long time ago when I started this deck build. It was running like 3 1-drops. And I've boosted that up to literally 11. The reason for this is because we just want to maximize the kind of like aggro combo potential of the deck. All of these can be valuable chump blockers if we need them to be, and we just want to make sure that we have maximum, Caretaker will always have food, will always have something that can pull Shark Chariot, and most importantly, will always have something that can help level Lucian. A lot of these cards effectively cost 0 mana. Pesky and Islander, since Islander reduces 1 cost by 1, can, for a lot of combos, effectively cost 0. So it just allows us more like crazy nut draws into the Blighted Caretaker and Grand Plaza game plans. And the last card that we actually haven't really talked about in this build is Blighted Caretaker. This card is insane. Anyone not running Blighted Caretaker in any sort of Lucian Hakram version is trolling. Blighted Caretaker is an incredible bailout as to, for example, sometimes when you don't draw Grand Plaza or you just need to sweep the board. This card has been auto-include in SI, any sort of SI aggro style for a very, very long time, and there's a great reason for that. It's also a large part of the reason why we actually have so many ones, just because Caretaker is so absurdly strong. All right, now we get to the sort of tricky part, which is talking about why I didn't include certain cards. So this is going to be, I'm going to try like a lightning round. So Fading Memories is just a little bit too unreliable, and there's not really enough of a way to get a 1 if we want to 1 off of it. Bark Beast, we don't want to play for early aggressive stats. That's not what this deck does. Hapless Aristocrat isn't bad. It can see some tech options in this list, but I like Warden's Prey better because of the board clog effect. Mark of the Isles. This deck actually doesn't really want these combat tricks or buffs. You'd find this surprisingly less useful in this deck. Stygian Onlooker, similar to Bark Beast. The problem with this card is just that we don't really want to play for early aggressive stats. Our combo is either going to kill them from 20 or 30 or 40 health, or it's not going to kill them at all. Cursed Keeper, again, it's very similar to the other 2 aggressive stats. Oh, I forgot to mention 1, Butcher. Similar to Cursed Keeper, it's like all Butcher does is just try to play for like some amount of board stats. It doesn't trigger a unique deaths, obviously. Like sometimes it can combo with something to help a death for Lucian, but usually this is just kind of win more. And when you want to be triggering deaths like Islander, Warden's Prey, everything else just does it better because Butcher doesn't give something that, can die easily. Next up, we've got Evershade Stalker. It actually wouldn't be terrible in this list, but you don't really have enough value from playing this card early, so it just ends up being a sort of not run out of steam engine, and it's completely redundant with finishers like Harrowing and Hecarim, so Evershade ultimately just has no place being in this deck. Sharpsight, similar reasons to Mark of the Isles. It's a little bit too reactive. We actually are not usually saving mana reactively on our combos. We're just going all in, and Sharpsight tends to not really have any applications. Right now, we have really great ways of being able to deal with, you know, Zoe with Sapling Toss. Single combat is close. It sometimes can sacrifice a unit on board, but not nearly as good as, you know, the other kind of like just more reliable early options. Again, this deck is very proactive, right? It is a combo deck. It's kind of like an aggro combo deck. And when you run reactive tools, your deck starts to get pretty clogged out. Soul Shepherd, this is actually a really common bait card. I've seen this so much in this archetype. Basically, this is like a really bad Grand Plaza, and I actually don't think I would even run a 4th Grand Plaza even if I could. Obviously, Soul Shepherd has a body, but if you want this effect, you kind of can't use the body. It's like one or the other, so ultimately just doesn't really do enough of anything, and its win rate on ladder is really low to reflect that. Stalking Shadows, I do want more draw in this deck, but the followers that we already have are not the things we want to be drawing at the time in the game. Stalking Shadows draws us into things. It also doesn't draw us closer to Harrowing, which, you know, most other forms of draw do draw us closer to Harrowing, but this shuffled, so it doesn't work for that. Vile Feast is all right in the deck as a way to counter Zoe, but we already have decent enough answers for that. Darkwater Scourge as Lifesteal Ephemeral. Its card's just a little clunky and a little awkward. We already have a lot of development punishers, and we don't really ever want to play this on an attack turn. We're not getting as much value by doing that. So Darkwater can stop an attack, but when you think about it, I mean, Haunted Relic and Onslaught are already doing that, and they're doing it better, and they're doing it cheaper. All right, Mist Call has been a common suggestion. Too awkward right now. Everything in the meta that's going to be countering your Hecarim or Lucian is often going to be like stunning or silencing it, so Mist Call doesn't really make sense. Relentless Pursuit, super common to see this suggestion here, which is that the idea of, you know, the idea of rallying works well with this sort of aggro combo style. Unfortunately, because we're ephemeral, it doesn't end up making any sense at all. Phantom Prankster, kind of like an awkward card that requires way too niche of a meta to work, but also we're not really trying to win by minor chip damage. This game wins by like miles, not inches. Senna, a common consideration in this deck. Ultimately, hands that have Lucian are already really good. Your Lucian is already going to level up, so it just ends up being like playing into your good hands a little bit more. There's no hand that will draw Lucian but won't have easy ways to level him already. Chronicler of Ruin, I've actually seen some people run this in this archetype. Honestly, it's pretty terrible. You can use it on Grizzled Ranger, but again, that's just not really how this archetype wants to play. It doesn't really do great. Yeah, we get a lot of blanks at this point. I have seen some people run Radiant Guardian. This isn't great. We don't really... It has like really awkward turns. It's not playing at the speed this deck wants to play, and it's extremely rare to have a board state where like we can actually trigger this and we need or want this kind of effect. And that does bring me to Remembrance, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are asking about. Remembrance is pretty solid. It's close. I ended up cutting it just barely because I wanted like more early proactive options. Like I cut it for more of the ones to help the combo a little bit more early. Again, the problem with Remembrance is that initially I was trying to like bail out some weaker hands, but ultimately it fell just short as a way of doing that, I think. So super close. I don't mind Remembrance, but just didn't make the cut in the end. Rekindler, I've seen it being used before. Ultimately, between 3 Harrowing and 3 Hecarim, we don't need Rekindler, although one of is kind of considerable. And lastly, we've got Ruination. Fearsome decks are also rocking Harrowing, and a lot of Fearsome decks are running Ruination as well. So it's kind of like a cute combo, but with this deck, the way we kill opponents, we don't really need to be killing their board. It's not the Fearsome deck sometimes gets like blanked on its board, so it has to Ruinate to even allow itself to Harrowing. It plays slower than this deck, so ultimately Ruination makes a bit more sense in that deck. Doesn't end up making any in this deck. All right, we get into our game here. As you can see, my LP isn't very high. I'm 65 Masters. I mentioned I got to 200 LP Masters, and I did using this deck. It was actually a slightly older version of this deck that was a bit worse. I then donked away a lot of LP playing Tarek Draven when Gamba came back. We don't talk about that day. So Lee Sin Zoe, this is a matchup that is actually it's pretty close to even. It really depends on your opening hand. Sometimes extremely favorable, sometimes not. This is a matchup that we're definitely kicking Harrowing. Deny makes it just a little bit more awkward, and we're looking for a good aggressive hand. Lucian or Plaza is one of the bigger ways we're winning this. God, this is actually a little bit tricky. We're attacking on odds, so I really like Caretaker. I think Islander is not quite good enough here. We do want something for Caretaker to sacrifice, but we have a lot of hits in the next several turns, and we really, really want to draw ourselves closer to Lucian or Plaza. So it's a little awkward. If I had either Lucian or Plaza, I definitely would never kick the Islander here. Okay, turn 2, play out Shark. Kind of awkward top decks. I don't mind having Hecarim in this matchup, but 2 Hecarim into Ranger definitely doesn't do us any favors. Bit of an interesting position. We can go ahead and take an open pass here. He'll be forced to play something into us. But this is actually one of the weaker hands this deck can have, so it'll be interesting talking about our awkward position. Because it's a combo deck, you will have to deal with some worse hands. And of course, you know, it's definitely debatable that kicking the Islander was wrong there. But for the most part, in a hand like this, in this matchup, I really want just either Plaza or Lucian. And there's very little else that's going to make a big difference. We can go ahead and take a pass here. Because he doesn't have like Zoe or anything, it's not really a big deal that our Caretaker comes down slightly later. Like that doesn't change anything. So in this case, we can go ahead and Plaza Sapling. Depends on what he does a little bit. Usually, I'm actually not sure what to read with hands like this. Like, I mean, unless he top decked it in the last couple of turns, these left cards, it would be no Goat, no Zoe. So usually, maybe sometimes not even Eye of the Dragon. Like his hand is pretty spell heavy or Lee Sin heavy. He might like open pass here, or he might play, yeah, like a butterfly. So, I mean, I'd love to lock him out of any mana here, but his hand, he's representing a more awkward hand than me, and we do actually need to play the Plaza at this point. If I didn't have a hand read that his hand was like awkward, I would be inclined to take this kind of pass. Like, I'd love to burn his mana, but his hand basically has to be awkward for him to do that. He could have like something for the Mentor to buff, but it'll be something not great, like an Eye of the Dragon or a Butterfly. Yeah, Zenith, that makes sense. Probably a double Zenith hand. We can read that as well. So super bricked out hand. Yeah, and I don't mind just like pre-committing a Sapling Toss here. That's perfectly fine. All right. So if he wants to, he can do a free attack with a Mentor. It's like, it's not a good attack. Again, his hand is maybe even worse than ours, which is saying something. For Lee Sin as a deck, that you should almost never have a hand that just like has to do like a 2-3 Mentor on turn 4. That feels horrible for him. So we are attacking on odds this game, which we do have to consider. That means like we can Hecarim on 6 into an open attack on 7, or we can just develop Hecarim into our attack on 7. We have to start like planning that out. Normally in this matchup, we are forced to play around things like Crescent Strike that can punish development. But I mean, if he hasn't drawn Zoe, or even like some Sketcher versions, then that's not going to be a real issue here. Goes for a Guiding Touch. That's a good play. He's trying to draw a unit. I would have Guiding Touch there as well. Like, you have to just hope you hit like a Goat or a Zoe, or like this game turns completely around if you had hit something good from Guiding Touch. Okay. So we draw Islander. Islander's pretty interesting. You know, we do have the ability to get some kind of attack here, and this attack should actually be reasonably threatening. I can also talk about Islander Hecarim. It's pretty rare that you should use Islander on Hecarim, to be honest, but that does come up sometimes, for sure. So I can start with Islander. I do want to, you know, make something more ephemeral, so I can take maybe an Islander on Ranger, I think is fine. We might not need to go as wide with Blighted Caretaker here. So I'm happy to just do an Islander on Ranger and see what happens. One of the very neat combos that we can do with Islander is we can get a double Shark attack. Because when Grizzled Ranger is ephemeral, it summons Shark. And because it's a scout attack, we'll actually summon Sharks twice on that one turn. Which will happen a lot with like Harrowing. Some versions that run like Mark of the Isles can enjoy that. But that's part of why Islander's in this list. It's a little niche, but it is happening here. If he does nothing, we will have the double Shark attack this turn, which can put off a lot of pressure. He plays Lee, which is kind of insane. This Lee never lives here. He has a double Lee in hand, but with only 2 mana left and no option, he has no possibility of having like the Moon Silver in hands. This Lee Sin should die to pretty much everything here. So we're going to go ahead and get our first attack with, you know, Grizzly Ranger. If we don't give him the gems first, of course. If we give him gems, then he can protect the Lee Sin. Actually, the Shark Chariot does give him inevitable gems. That's true. So the Lee Sin will stick around this turn. Ha, that's actually kind of funny. Maybe I should just glimpse the chariot then. That's so weird. That's so strange. But I think just because we have a guaranteed threat against Lee Sin, I think it's proper to do that. Insane. Because the only way he, like, you know, that deck needs 2 spells here to get the barrier to save the Lee Sin. And the only way he can generate the spells is just by feeding off his mentor. Because he doesn't run 2 1-mana spells in that deck. Like, sometimes Sonic Wave can be 1 1-mana spell, but not 2. I mean, we can get a minor hand read here, but he kind of always has to block this. There's no way around that. He's like planning out and he's realizing that he can't protect the Lee Sin without blocking this. It's actually very interesting. I guess if he doesn't block this, he has to have a second Lee Sin in hand, but we already have a hand read. He has a second Lee Sin. It's very, very likely, so it doesn't really change anything. Okay, so he lets Lee die here, and he's taking a little bit of extra damage. It's kind of crazy, actually. Yeah, because, I mean, he shouldn't really have anything else to play. That's sort of a surprising play. I wonder why he did that. So we have to play around both Guiding Touch and Pale Cascade, so we're always dragging this with a 3. And the Mentor, we can just drag with this as well. If we had Harrowing in hand, I might actually drag with the Islander to just, you know, try to get closer to that. But in this case, I think there's less of a point in doing that, right? Like, we don't need to like kill off our own Islander. Yeah, actually, you know, we have a wide enough board. Let's do it here. Yeah, let's do it here. We can push a little bit more damage, sure. But definitely if we have Harrowing, it's an easy play for us, because you have to start like planning out your turns and just making sure that you have something for it. So that Pale there is perfectly fine. I'm very happy about this. His hand range makes me not even care about killing the Mentor, and I kind of wanted to glimpse anyway, so this just gives us a free glimpse that's mana efficient. This is absolutely amazing for me. He probably has a double Pale hand, so he probably has a second Pale. He did want to cycle the Pale, but the thing is, with his hand range, it's a bit less likely that like keeping the Mentor alive matters. Like, there's a decent chance in the last like 2 or 3 draws he did draw like a Zoe or a Goat or something that he can use Mentor on. But at this stage of the game, I'm actually much more scared giving him the gems for Mentor, right? The single permanent buff doesn't really matter. So it's just a matter of like Mentor coming on the board a little bit too late. So one of these left 3 cards can easily be Zoe, Mountain Goat. There's the Goat. And, you know, the Goat's gonna have 4 attacks. So if we want, we can threaten a block with something. We're not really taking any of these blocks anyway. I can do a bizarre Lucian level. Wow, that's kind of crazy. We can try to do some weird Lucian level here. We're playing outside of the range of like Sonic Wave, so I think first I'm always just gonna start by playing my Islander on my Caretaker here. Because he doesn't have Crescent Strike, we're actually not really feeling forced into open attacking. Developing into our next attack is always just gonna be more reliable. Because like if Hecarim open attacks, we actually don't have quite enough of a threat just because our board is, you know, underdeveloped at this point. Okay, so he probably has that second Pale that I was thinking about earlier. Yeah, it's probably a little bit better for me to like at least force something here. If it's likely to be Pale, I'd actually rather just like tank a little bit less damage, because the Lee can sometimes have a hard time killing us in one turn. That one's actually close. This one's a bit of a close call. There's a good chance it's second Pale, but even if it's not, I mean, that's probably better for us if it's not. So if I want to, I can try to like turbo level this Lucian in a very, very strange way. What's more reasonable is that I'm going to force him to hush when my Hecarim attacks on the next turn, because I should expect him to hush the Lucian or deal with it in some way. Forcing that out has some real value. So if I want to, I can just do a Caretaker now just to get like, you know, 3 level charges on the Lucian. Playing the Lucian before his attack there might have been a little bit better. I was just a little bit worried about Sonic Wave. So he actually showed he had the second Mentor hand all along. Yeah, let's go ahead and get the 4 here. Like forcing him to do something on the leveled Lucian is just a little bit better, I think, actually. Is there a reason to pre-level it? No, there's actually no reason to pre-level it. Like getting it to 3 out of 4 charges in this case is the same. And I actually do want to have a developed unit here. I think it makes it a little bit better. So depending on what we draw, we might not Hecarim at all. If we want to like go for a combo that will capitalize off of a leveled Lucian or something, we'll see. So I do have a Hecarim here. Hecarim gets shut down by concussive Palm, basically. Like Palm turns Hecarim into a bit of an awkward play. Forcing it out is kind of nice, but Palm doesn't necessarily like... Palm is still a good play even if I have Caretaker anyway. I guess what I can start with is a Pesky to try to like slow play the Hecarim. It's not worth it in this case. He's not tapping under Palm for anything. So we'll start with Hecarim here. Obviously, like, the minor sequencing and stuff really can matter for how this deck plays out. I know it seems like I'm like overthinking a lot of like little nitty-gritty decisions, but that's kind of how you have to play Runeterra at a high level. Like, there's no overthinking. There's just, you're either thinking or you're not. Okay. So he takes the Hush, which I'm fine with. Like, the fact that he had to Hush that means he doesn't necessarily have a good Hush to use on Lucian now. He should probably pass again here. Plays the Eye. So that's quite interesting. I'll play, I guess I play the Onslaught of Shadows now. This will probably get nopified. Best case scenario, it forces out a deny. Even if it gets nopified, I don't really mind here though, because I'm in a position where I didn't need it that badly, and it still sets him a little bit behind on plays. So looks like he's still surviving an extra turn here. All right, got a decent attack. And the reason that this deck does pretty well against Targon is just because stuff like Hush, don't get me wrong, it's mostly Hush. Hush obviously slows us down a bit, but it's not an outright blowout, right? Like, you kind of have to Hush the Hecarim or the Lucian before they commit. Otherwise, you're not really getting enough value out of it, right? And what that means is it stalls for one turn, which, don't get me wrong, is still a powerful effect. But against certain strategies, like when you go in for certain win conditions, the Hush will just lose you the game on the spot. This time, it just slows us down a little bit, which is perfectly fine. Because when he slows down our win condition, he's still going to be extremely vulnerable for it next turn. Targon tends to be a little bit slower at closing out games, Lee Sin being kind of like the one major exception to that. So if he doesn't have anything for this Lucian, we are getting another attack here. Lucian will level off of the first death, and it will trigger its level off of the Shark Chariot. So we're getting a second attack here, which means we're kind of just winning the game. I mean, it depends what he does, I guess. I don't know what he can do at 3 mana here. Looks like he's toast. Can't think of a hand. Alright, good game, friend. Yep, so this game, I think, you know, there's 2 plays that we should talk about. The play we made last turn, we did really want to like use our mana to level trigger the Lucian. That's why I did a weird Caretaker. It's fairly rare to do that. It's just because I knew he didn't have a counter response with his mana and his deck, and because there's not really another way to spend our mana that turn apart from just, like, you know, giving Lucian level triggers. So that ended up being perfectly fine. Could have gotten one more level trigger if I used the other Caretaker, but I knew I was probably going to Hecarim the turn after, so I knew that the difference between that one level up probably wouldn't matter. Probably the most questionable thing we did was mulliganing away Oblivious Islander at the start of the game. I'm still not 100% sure about that kind of decision in that position. It's close. Because I've got so many things for Blighted Caretaker to attach to, just because I have those like 11 1-drops, it does give me the ability to try to mulligan a little bit more aggressively. If it's a matchup where I don't need Plaza or Lucian as much, I wouldn't do that for sure. But in this matchup, I think it's a much closer call, and I ended up going for the aggressive mulligan, which I think paid off in the end. All right, we get into our second game here against Denu Gabriel. This is Feel the Rush. This is actually probably one of the deck's harder matchups. Really kind of well, I say harder. I don't know. I have a pretty positive win rate in this matchup, but it feels a little unfavorable. Kind of an interesting hand. We actually don't need the sapling tosses in this case. Let's just keep Plaza, go in a little bit deep for combo pieces and Lucian. This is a pretty premium hand. Look at that. So we know we're attacking on evens in this game, which is pretty nice as well. We can go ahead and get a free attack with Shark Chariot here. In some cases, he can Vile Feast us just because we have like no unit mana, which we'd love because we would pesky to bring the Shark back this turn anyway, so that would be great. But obviously, if there's no reason to do anything, we're not going to use our pesky. Pesky is a pretty valuable resource. So he has to think about what he does here. There's no reason for him to pass on a Catalyst hand. Takes the Weirding Stone line, and we're just gonna go ahead and Plaza. This is a pretty simple one. We don't have to like make any like weird plays. We just have to play around his thing. So we're playing around Avalanche, we're playing around Grasp. But the nice thing is, because we have Plaza, our units aren't dying to Avalanche, right? So it's kind of just a completely different field. So here's my Lucian. It's a 4/3, pretty scary for him. And we can begin to threaten even leveling it up, right? So let's go ahead and see. We can see how he handles the pesky Spectre. We're not gonna bait out anything with the Onslaught, but there's a chance he might like, I mean, it's very unlikely he'll do anything either way. All right, let's Onslaught here. So you'll notice like he has 8 mana, so we have to think what could he have. Well, these decks don't main deck Icequake. Obviously, if Trundle's on the board, then we're playing around Icequake. Avalanche here doesn't really do much because all of our units have 3 mana. So yep, we can just go ahead and level up the Lucian. We do want to kill the Weirding Stones, so we're gonna sacrifice, you know, 1 potential Nexus damage on killing the Weirding Stones and do this. So a pretty common card for him here is Grasp, I guess, off of these passes. Or maybe just like, maybe desperate enough to vengeance this Lucian, which would be great. Catalyst into nothing. You're gonna have to have something here. All right, Lucian levels. So it does level, you know, after combat. It's not like crazy, but the fact that we have the Lucian leveled now means we're pretty much just good. Like yeah, pretty much. I don't know. I'm not sure about this matchup. In my head, it's a bit unfavored, but I think I might actually have 100% win rate against this. I can't remember a time I've lost against them. Who knows? So he's got Trundle. Obviously, like, you know, giving Lucian a potential rally is a pretty big deal. And he's not really going to be doing too much of anything here. I can probably just pre-develop this Grizzled Ranger. This looks fine. He's completely locked out on attack because obviously if I just block with Ranger, then we have a rally. So if I want to, I can like glimpse the Ranger and try to push for lethal. The fact that he's at 4 mana means I am going to do that. At 4 mana, he can't really do much here. At best, he can like Frostbite Lucian to buy himself an extra turn, but that's amazing. Forcing out a Frostbite for that is amazing. So if he does nothing, he is dead to this attack right now. All right, so he's out. He's done. All right, GG. And we didn't really need to kill him there. Like, it's nice forcing out a little bit of extra pressure just to force out a get out of jail free card. We were usually going to kill him next turn, but sometimes you just kill him a turn early. That's perfectly fine. All right, third game. Let's go. All right. Game 3. We're against Leona Asol. Perfect. So this is just, you know, one of the many versions of Demacia Targon. This is a hand where it's a pretty obvious full kick. Like, nothing is hitting like combo pieces like we need it to. In this case, we've got Pesky Islander Hecarim. All right. Still looking for like a bit more of the combo to hit, but again, Demacia Targon has basically no answer to Harrowing, so I don't really need like an early crazy combo to even be able to win here, right? We're perfectly fine. I'll wave to this guy. He probably knows me here. And his soldier should get a pretty easy free attack here. I can go for an Islander. I mean, I don't think I'm going to want to discount anything else. An Islander does allow me to at least, you know, have an open attack that can force an exchange or threaten too, which is a little bit better. Also, I can curve with Lucian if I had top decked Lucian here. So, fine taking an attack like this. He obviously doesn't have a good pale since he can't get the Nightfall. And I'm happy with this exchange as well. If I had, you know, Lucian in hand or something, then I wouldn't be happy with that exchange because we'd want Lucian to see the death, but perfectly free there. And now, yeah, I mean, our hand is kind of, it's not great. Like, this is a good example. Like, the deck looks like incredibly combo heavy, incredibly dependent on like good hands, but this is a good example of the kind of situation where it just doesn't really matter. Like, our opening hand isn't great. In fact, it's about as bad as it can be. Like, we've got like useless stuff, no Lucian, nothing great to combo with Plaza, no Blighted Caretaker. We have a Hecarim and 2 Harrowings on turn 3. But we're still just going to win this game. If not on our first Harrowing, then on our second one. Harrowing is just an unfair card in this matchup. It's pretty great. Oh, man. Oh, no. It's happened. I said in the guide, never play Plaza if I don't at least have the Shark. At least the first Shark. Never play second Plaza without Shark. And my resolve is being tested. As mentioned in the guide, I really don't think I can do it. It takes such willpower to not play the second Plaza. It looks so good, doesn't it, playing the second Plaza? But I promise, like, I mean, we do have Hecarim. Maybe I can play the second Plaza just because we have Hecarim. And we've got Hecarim that's, like, coming back off of these two, unless it gets obliterated by Comet. But we don't have an answer to Comet anyway. Oh, maybe just this once. Maybe just this once I can play the second Plaza. Maybe that's fine. Oh, here we go. There he is. Nice. They never see it coming. No way he passes here, right? That'd just be too funny. Definitely can't pass here, mister. I'm definitely not going to attack if you pass. Alright, see you later, dude. So, sweet! We just get to burn his mana for free there. I think we confused him enough with that sequencing. That's what did it. And we get rewarded for our patience with the double Shark Chariot draw. So yeah, again, this looks pretty great. I mean, we didn't even really need Shark Chariot here, but it definitely makes like this Plaza thing less of an issue. Oh, and he showed Written in the Stars. That's so good for us. So the Solar Priestess card was a little scary because it can obliterate our Hecarim. And when Hecarim's obliterated, if we don't have Glimpse to kill him instead of him getting obliterated, he doesn't come back from Harrowing. Like, that obliterate was one of the ways that he could have maybe won this game. But now that he doesn't have it, it's just a lot less likely. So I'm always playing Hecarim here. Hecarim, I think, is pretty free. If he wants to silence the Hecarim, which he should, like most hands will just have to silence the Hecarim now, then I'm still potentially getting chariots. Okay. We're always playing Hecarim this turn. We're always forcing out a stun. The thing is, this deck is a committed attack deck, so we do still have to force out that kind of thing. If he wants to, he can actually stop a chariot attack by like silencing the pesky. But again, eventually he'll just run out of stuns and hushes. That's kind of like how this deck plays. Like, all the hush does is kind of stall a little bit, and then it just gets wasted. So we do still have our nice shark attack here, and the sharks both have 5 attack, so the Leona can't even really properly block them, which is pretty great. Let's just go ahead and eat this thing for free. Yep, looking good. It's nice to have this this casual 13 attack of stats coming in here. And now he just has a Hecarim to deal with. Like, if he kills it, it'll come back. And, I mean, if he hushes it, I won't really care because he's slowing himself down. So it's like, this matchup feels so good. This is part of why this deck is just so satisfying right now. Because this matchup it's just great. It's a great matchup. If he has second Leona and he can do like a double stun to our Harrowing, then that can sort of get a little awkward. There's a good chance he's priced into skipping this attack here. If I pass, like, I'd probably take a skip on this attack if that was me. Let's see what he does. Burning 7 mana is probably worth it here. Because, like, he has to know if he kills Hecarim, I'm just harrowing it anyway. So killing Hecarim does pretty little. I mean, it forces me to develop instead of open attacking. Alright. But, again, we're a committed development deck. So, if I really want to, I can, like, try to summon 3 Hecarims on next turn by, like, using Harrowing now and then Harrowing next turn. For the triple Hecarim. It's not bad. It's a niche play. It's a pretty funny way to end this video, though. What do you guys think? Because obviously this puts a second Harrowing in the puts a second Hecarim in the death pool. It puts more sharks in the death pool too. I mean, he can't silence all of them, right? He can't even double stun all of them. Yeah, I guess this is worth it. Sure. Don't do this at home, kids. This is a really niche play. Yeah, me too, dude. Me as well. So this just, you know, diversifies our game plan. Did I say triple? I meant double. But it just means, like, if he has something like a Hush, for example, that's no good. If he has, like, one source of stun, which there's a lot of, like, single sources of stun. Even in this case, it's probably slightly trolly, just because, like, we had enough mana to maybe Sapling Toss instead. But we're never going to need the Harrowing twice here. Like, we have a lot of sharks coming in as well. Okay, so, yeah, we got the Leona. That's the one stun, and that's where our second Hecarim kind of comes in here. We have, like, 6 sharks that are all attacking, and they're all getting buffed off of this Hecarim. And I can, like, drag this to the right side. Minus 24. Ooh, my friend, that doesn't look good for you. And this Hecarim just straight up doesn't even attack then, I think. Because if the Hecarim attacks, we lose the Hecarim buff on all of the rest of them. It goes to a 10 off of the level up. Yeah, I think this Hecarim literally doesn't even attack. Right? Let me do the math here. Deal a little bit more extra damage. Yeah. Just because both Hecarims are leveling up on the bench. And we have a 6 white attack because we cloned our sharks off of the first Harrowing. So, I mean, All of our sharks just have 11 here. So he's gonna, I mean, it starts with maybe like a single Hush. I'm not sure if Hush is in his range though. I mean, that's a lot of damage. He can do something with Solari Sunforger. Single combat with Solari. Maybe the Hecarim attack was mathematically better. That's like, it's a little too much math for me to do right here. 11. But then, like, the thing is, when Hecarim goes to combat, because it's ephemeral, I lose the buff. So it just means the buff matters less. But I could have dragged, like, the Eclipse Dragon with the Hecarim. That might have been a little bit better. But yeah, the thing is, he kind of wanted to single the Hecarim anyway. And so by attacking with the Hecarim, I'm giving him better counterability. With Hush or single, like, I don't attack with the Hecarim there just because it just makes this play less of an auto win, right? Again, don't try this at home. This is what I'm talking about. When I said at the start of the video that, like, this deck just has some big brain moments. All right, so yeah, I mean, that last game was a great example of, like, why I love this deck. As I mentioned, like, it's just a super cool combo deck that you have to do some, like, 7-head level play sometimes. And sometimes it seems like it's 7-head, but it ends up being like a 2-head play. But hey, that's part of the fun. All right, so yeah, this is my final version of the Spooky Kill combo deck. This is it. This is fully done. We've been working on this build for so long. I'm so glad that this has come to a final conclusion. Time to start playing some other decks. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I mean, if you watched it to the end of the guide, thank you very much, because it's always like kind of tilting. Like, I want to try to make these cool decks, but to be honest, like, if there's not a lot of people that don't watch the full guide, then it's just really hard to do certain, like, cool things with my net decks. Like, if there's not a lot of people that don't watch the full guide, then I literally am forced to just make sure my decks are kind of like more basic, make sure that they perform better without an explanation, which is kind of sad. Like, I can't do as crazy things and just rely on you guys being able to understand the deck and, play it with the guidance that I provide. All right. Anyway, special shout out if you've made it this far. Okay. And I'll see you guys for the next deck guide.